Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Pretty good. Thanks for coming on. I invited I think 25 to 30 people. So I'll just wait maybe 5 minutes. But do you guys have do Shannon or Hamza, do you guys have any individual questions that you have right now?
Am I gonna need to be writing stuff down or anything? Because I'm kind of driving.
Oh, are you gonna? No. And I'm gonna record it too. So you can always refer back to it too.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. I'll wait one more minute, then we'll start. And yeah, like I said, I'm recording this. I know a few of the other counselors said that not a lot of people showed up. So I think I'm just going to record this. If you guys you're welcome to stay on and ask questions in the chat as I'm presenting, and I'll kind of look back at the questions, and then I'll stay on after if anyone has any questions either. But yeah, I guess I'll just go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen. So you can see a presentation that I'm doing and just different documents and things like that. Also, if you want to re-watch this, I'm going to send an email to everyone with the links that I'm referring to in the presentation and the link to the video as well. Hi, John. Thanks for coming. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of people here, but I just mentioned that this is being recorded and you can refer back to it after the fact. And I'm also going to send everyone an email with links and things like that. So, okay, I think even though we don't have that many people, I'm just going to get started and I'll show you the presentation first. This will probably be maybe 10 minutes. I won't be able to see questions in the chat. But if you do have questions in the chat, just feel free to write them down. And then once I'm done with the presentation, and I can go back in and look. So can you guys see the presentation okay on your screen?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so basically this is the 4-year college information session that I'm holding for all of my seniors that indicated that they want more information on college information on their senior survey. And so basically I may be going over some things that you already know, but everyone's kind of in a different position right now. Some people are still kind of going through the college search process. Some people are wanting the logistics of how to actually apply. So this is going to kind of cover everything. But basically, if you check out this roadmap for application process, the first thing, I think everyone that is on this meet right now probably has already done the first few steps, but there's still time if you haven't done that to kind of gather your list of colleges, look at the admission criteria, look at the applications. Definitely at this point, you're going to want to keep deadlines recorded on some kind of a spreadsheet to make sure that you're not missing any deadlines. October 15th is when colleges are legally able to start giving deadlines. But usually November 1st is a really typical earlier deadline, then November 15th, then December 1st, then December 15th, then January. So there's a whole bunch of different deadlines for each college. Some colleges have 3 different kinds of deadlines. And we'll go over that a little bit more in another slide, but just keep your deadlines all in one place so that you know when you need to be submitting all of your documents. Admissions criteria, for the most part, ACT and GPA are heavily considered. However, this year, because of COVID, a lot of schools are going test optional. So they'll consider other factors a little bit heavier than they typically would have if you had submitted an ACT. If you do have an ACT and you do have a favorable score, I would definitely still submit it. But if you didn't get a score that you love, maybe take advantage of the fact that a lot of these schools this year are going test optional. If you don't know if the schools that you're applying to are going test optional, most of them have on their website whether or not they are, but you can always just email your admissions office representative email just to double check. And even, or you could give them a call if you're not sure if you should submit your ACT score or not. You can give them a call. They're usually pretty good with telling you what would be in your best interest to do depending on what your scores are. Letters of rep, will go over that too. Some schools require them, some schools don't. So it's important to keep in mind what schools are requiring what kinds of information for their application. I don't know of any schools that aren't accepting online applications at this point. So everything's online. There's a few different kinds of ways to apply online, and I'll go over that. There's a Common App, there's something called the Coalition app, and then there's just applying directly through the website too. But typically you're going to send your ACT scores, your transcripts, your application fee, your letters of recommendation. Everything's going to be sent online, and it's going to be done through Naviance with the exception of ACT scores. So ACT.org is the place where you're going to request ACT scores to be sent. Again, some schools aren't even requiring them. Some schools will just accept your own report, like the self-reported ACT score, and you won't have to go into ACT.org and actually request and pay. I think it's like this, it's around $16. I'm not 100% sure per school. So if you're worried about paying that $16, definitely ask and see if you can just self-report initially. Otherwise, sometimes they also accept like a photocopy. So if you go into your ACT account and you can actually upload a PDF of your score and send it that way too. Some schools will actually accept it that way as well. So you won't have to officially send them anything until you're accepted. Like I said, Naviance is where transcripts and letters of recommendation are sent. And I'll go through that process on another slide as well. But that's in general how everything kind of works. I think at this point, everyone on this meet has probably seen Naviance before. If you're watching a recording of this and you want help with Naviance, there's some really good videos that I'll show you after I'm done with this presentation that you can go onto our website and watch them to kind of see how Naviance works. But basically, at this point, you're using Naviance to request letters of recommendation and transcripts. If you're still in the college search process, Naviance has a really good tool called College Supermatch, which is something where you kind of put in your GPA, your ACT score, a major that you may be interested in. You can put as many majors as you want in there. Do you want a big school? Do you want a small school? A location? Do you want to stay in Minnesota? Do you only want to go to Western schools? You can select all of the criteria that you're wanting in a college, and then it'll give you a list of schools that Naviance considers a good match for you. So if you're considering schools still, Supermatch would be a great place to start. But again, keep in mind that deadlines are starting to come up. So that's kind of something to always keep in the back of your head at this point. Let's see what this is. So admissions criteria, I did go over that a little bit. In the lower left-hand corner, you'll see a little triangle here of guidelines or recommendations about how many schools you should apply to. So a lot of people will say try to go for 3 to 4 safety schools. That means you're very likely to get in to those schools. Your scores and grades are above the average of what they're accepting. 2 to 3 target schools, which means your scores and grades are on point with the average of what the particular school accepts. And then reach schools are where your scores and grades are lower than what the average acceptance is. And you could, a recommendation is 1 to 2 reach schools. I'm not 100% sure I agree with this criteria. I think that you should search for schools that are good fits for you and not pay as much attention as what this general recommendation is saying about like admissions percentages and admissions criteria. I think what I feel your biggest um, concern should be is if the school's a good fit for you. Do they have the major that you want? Do they have the clubs and activities you want? Do you feel like it would be somewhere that you want to stay and enjoy your life for the next 4 years? Do they what do they have to offer that is going to make your 4 years fulfilling and worthwhile? So I mean, I would recommend just keep that in the back of your mind. People do recommend that, but at least have 1 to 2 safety schools that you know you're going to get into. And then, you know, the average number of colleges that students apply to is super varying as well. So it could be between like 1 school and it could to like 15 schools. I would say maybe the average is like 6 schools. But again, it really depends on you as a student and as a person and what you're kind of looking for. You might want to apply to 10 schools and not know where you want to go until you get your financial aid letters. You might just want to go to U of M, and if you get accepted, you're happy and that's all you want to do. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. Minimum high school course requirements are different in 4-year schools than they are for our actual Hopkins High School requirements. So I know we kind of just remind you of this every year in the course guide, and if I ever talk with you. English, you're going to have 4 years required typically in 4-year schools. That's pretty much the same as our requirements. Math, though, we only require 3 years at Hopkins. Colleges will require 4 years. Science is a tricky one. You'll have to see what colleges you're applying to and what requirements they have. But a lot of schools will require 4 years of a science, whereas our Hopkins grad requirements are only 3. Some schools will require both physics and chemistry, depending on the department or the major that you are applying to as well. So keep those requirements in mind and see me as soon as possible if you need to add any science or chemistry or physics into your schedule for second semester. Social studies, ours is 3 years. Typically, some colleges might have 4 years of social studies, including 1 year. Oh, I'm sorry. It's competitive. Oh, okay. It's saying 3 years here, but for Hopkins, we have 4 years, so you're fine. And again, usually schools will have different requirements, so just double check. A lot of schools will require 2 years of a single second language, meaning you can't do like ASL for 1 year and Spanish for 1 year and have that count as 2 years. It would have to be Spanish 1 and Spanish 2. Some schools don't require that extra second language. Some schools will accept a test if you're proficient in a language, but you actually never took it in high school. They always recommend the higher or the more years of that language you have on your transcript, the better. But I know a lot of students have a lot of different situations, and it's not super, it's not like super important for a lot of schools as long as you kind of explain your situation. But some schools do require 2 years, so keep that in mind. Visual and or performing arts is 1 year, or I mean, if you're going to a visual or performing arts school, that might be different too. But again, just kind of keep track of what your school that you're applying to, the requirements that they have. ACT. So upcoming test dates, if you haven't taken the ACT yet and you still want to take the ACT, you certainly can still. I know for Hopkins, we're not doing the October test here at the school, but there are other area schools that are doing the test. And there's multiple other locations. If you just look on act.org, you'll be able to see who is offering it. We are offering it in December. If you do want to take it specifically to get a score that meets like a scholarship requirement for a school that you have, keep that in mind too. Some schools do have a cutoff of December if you want to submit a new score for a scholarship or for reconsideration as well. So you would want to connect with your admissions officer if you do have any questions about when the last ACT score that they'll accept would be. So basically you can apply, you can submit your ACT score that you have now, but you could also submit, and same with the transcript, you can also submit an updated transcript and an updated ACT score up to a specific cutoff, depending on what the colleges say about that. It's different for every school. So letters of recommendation. So this is kind of a tricky one too, because not all schools require them. Some schools will only take one letter and they won't even read the other letter. So keep in mind how many minimum and maximum letters your school will take. If you're applying using the Common App, many schools will require a counselor to write a letter of rec. So find out if that is the case. Usually it will tell you on the Common App whether or not it's required or not. If you don't know and can't find it, you can always email me and I can look, as long as it's requested on Naviance, and I'll let you know if you need one or not. I'm happy to write one for any of my students. There is a process that I'll go over too. It's basically a survey that you have to fill out and just an email requesting one from me. Students need to match their Common Application account with their Naviance account. So there's a video with that, and if we have time, I can play that. Otherwise, you can watch it on your own time, but it's a pretty straightforward process. Students must request their transcripts on Naviance in order for a letter of recommendation to be sent by a teacher. So before you ask your teachers if they could write you a letter, the school needs to be requested on Naviance first for it to show up. Everything is connected to Naviance and everything is sent electronically. So before you even ask, I would just add that college onto Naviance. So when your teacher does go in and upload their letter, it's already there and they won't have to look for it. So etiquette on asking for letters of recommendation. Usually in normal times, we would say ask in person, but obviously that's not possible right now. So ask by email, send teacher letter of recommendation request in Naviance student. If the teacher wants, they do have some questions that are in Naviance student for you to answer. I would just say answer them anyway, just so that they're there and they're easier for the teacher. Even if they don't want them, they might use them for your letter to make it even better anyway. And then email the teacher and counselor when completed, or counselor if it's the counselor letter of rec. So we say give at least 2 weeks. Teachers are super busy right now. So they're not going to be able to write a letter within like 1 or 2 days of you asking them. So this is another time to kind of make sure that you're keeping track of deadlines and making sure to give at least 2 weeks to ask your teachers. If you know who they are, I would say do it as soon as possible, even today. Ask them to write that letter. And then letters of rec do take quite a while to write, and we always want to make sure that we write a really good one for you. And so they do take a lot of time. So make sure to say thank you or write a thank you note to whoever writes your letters of rec. Okay, so there's a few ways to apply to schools, and it can be super confusing because it seems like every school has like, you can have option A or option B, and it's hard to decide which one is the best. If the college has 2 options, there's not going to be like one option that they prefer over the other one, or you're not going to get in one way and not get in the other way. It's not going to impact your admissions decision. It's more about what works best for you. So you may have heard the word Common Application. It's basically an application. I don't know if there's another slide. I don't think there is about Common App, but basically it's a common application that hundreds of schools use. It's supposed to make life easier for the student, and it does if you're applying to, I would say, 3 or more schools that use the Common App. There are some extra questions and some extra steps, and it is a little bit more time consuming than just a typical college application. So if you're only applying to 1 or like 2 is iffy, you can kind of make the decision. But if you're only applying to 1 school and it's between using the Common App and not the Common App, I would recommend using the one that's not the Common App, because it'll just be more straightforward and easy for you. Like I said before, if you're applying to 3 or more, I would recommend using the Common App because it's basically all the same questions and you don't have to fill in all your information a million times. if you are eligible for free or reduced lunch, if you use the Common App, it'll ask you if you are eligible for a fee waiver, and then you can select yes. And it's super easy that way. That means you don't have to pay for application fees. And honestly, it can save you thousands of dollars. So basically, if you apply through colleges in the Common App and you're free or reduced lunch, you can apply to as many colleges as you want. You won't have to pay a fee. And it's a straightforward process. If you are not eligible for free or reduced lunch, the fees will add up. So it's probably between $30 to sometimes $80 an application. So they do add up. So keep that in mind. Before you start applying to a million schools, you might want to add up what your costs will be, because there is that cost. And then if they require an ACT, there's that extra $16 there. October is College Knowledge Month, so there are a lot of Minnesota schools that actually waive their application fee. And we'll be adding information onto our Canvas course about what schools are waiving their fees for October. It's usually the last week of October that they'll do that. So if you're not free or reduced lunch, that's a good time to apply when they're doing that College Knowledge Month. HBCUs use a Common Black application, which is similar to the Common application, but it's only for HBCUs. And for whatever reason, they don't accept fee waivers. So just keep that in mind. Even if you do qualify for free or reduced lunch, for whatever reason, they don't accept the fee waivers and you still have to pay. You can always contact them and give them your situation and ask, but they're pretty strict about the application fees for whatever reason. Coalition application is a newer one. It's very similar to the Common application. It's supposed to make life easier for students as well. So again, if you have multiple schools that use the Coalition application, maybe use it. But honestly, in the past, it's pretty new. It's only like 2 years old. The third 3 years, but the first year is just a mess. I would say that's a little bit trickier than the Common App. So I don't know if I would recommend using it at this point. They still haven't figured out a lot of glitches and issues, but those are the 4 different ways that you can apply. Okay, so application types and timelines. So these are in general what colleges will usually say. There might be different wording with some schools. I'm just gonna look at time here. Okay. But for the most part, there's different deadlines for each school. Some schools are just rolling admissions. They have no deadlines. Applications are accepted anytime, although earlier is always still better, just because you get a decision before, and sometimes the chances of being accepted are a little bit better. Regular decision usually is in January or after. Admissions decisions are usually given after April 1st. And then there's 2 early ones. So there's early decision and early action. The difference between both of those is that early decision is legally binding, meaning that if you get in, you are legally bound to that institution. Usually that a lot of students decide not to do early decision. We only get maybe 5 kids do that within this whole senior class, just because you have to know you want to go there, and you don't want to consider any other option. Your decision is usually given in December. You have to notify your counselor if you're going to do that, and the counselor has to sign off, basically saying if you get in, this is what you need to do. You need to tell all your other colleges that you're applying to once you get in that you're no longer interested, and things like that. Early action is another earlier deadline, which is usually in November, and decision is usually given in Sorry, I don't know if I said November or December, but usually in November. Decision usually given in December. The difference with that is that you are not legally bound to actually attend there. So pay attention to the wording. Early decision, you are legally bound. Early action, you are not legally bound to attend. The benefit between both of those is that sometimes for some schools, you have a higher percentage chance of getting into the school. And even if you don't get into the school in that particular deadline, they may push you into the regular decision pool as well, and you can still have another chance at being accepted. I do have a list of an Excel list of schools, which will basically say like what the difference is between early decision and regular decision and acceptance rates. So if you are interested in that, we can I can send that to you as well. And this is the spreadsheet that I was just talking about. So you can see like for the very first one, the early decision acceptance rate is 90%, but the regular decision acceptance rate is 64%. So that's a super significant difference. But like Augustana, there's a 3% difference. So, I mean, sometimes there's not a difference at all. Sometimes there's a huge difference. So it is important to see what that difference is. And if that's going to make or break you getting into the school, that might be a reason that you would want to apply early decision if that's the school that you want to go to. And there's no other option for you. Okay, so how to request a transcript. You're going to request it in Naviance, and you're going to email your counselor to confirm deadlines. In your Canvas course, you should all have a course that's HHS Counseling, which has modules. You're going to scroll down to 12th graders here, and there's some resources for you. There's entire college application process, application guide for first-time students, that's specific to Common App. And then there's a paper version of questions for letters of recommendation request, which is also easier and available to do on Naviance. But the entire college application process is this document right here, and it'll take you through the application process step by step. So the first step is to complete the college application. It will give you the different options. Step 2 would be to send ACT and SAT scores, and a reminder that Hopkins does not send test scores. You order them either through ACT.org if it's your ACT score, or College Board if it's your SAT score. Step 3 is sending your transcript through Naviance. So you're basically going to log in through ClassLink, click on Naviance, click on colleges, click on colleges I'm applying to, click on Add Colleges to List, check each box next to the college, move to Application List. On the bottom, click Add and Request Transcripts. Click Initial, click Request, and Finish. And I know I did that super fast, but if you want a more detailed way, this document has a link to a video that we have on our website that goes through the process.
In order to request a transcript on my Naviance student account, I simply need to go to the Colleges tab up above, or down below under My Favorites, I can find colleges I'm thinking about. Again, to save colleges under colleges I'm thinking about, I need to click on the heart next to the college that I'm researching. So let's go in there. You can see University of Northern Iowa is a college that I'm thinking about and interested in applying to. So how do I request a transcript? I simply click on the box next to that school, Northern Iowa, and then I go to Move to Application. Once I'm in there, I will select a preferred application deadline. I'm going to do regular decision. And how I will submit that, I'm going to go directly to the institution. And I've already sent my application there, so I'm going to click on that box. And now Add Request Transcripts. And this is the first initial transcript I'm requesting, so I'm going to click on that box and Request and Finish. And that's it. You can see University of Northern Iowa is added to my list now. I've requested that transcript on my Naviance student account.
Okay. Let's see here. Nicole, actually, I think I do that. So there's that video. I'm not going to go through the other 2 videos right now, but there's 2 things that you need to do if you're doing, if you're applying through the Common App. The first is to link your Common App to your Naviance. And the second is sign the FERPA waiver. So both of those things need to happen before you can request letters through Naviance and before I can send your transcript through Naviance. And then after that is letters of recommendation. So you have 2 letters of recommendation. Again, keep in mind, some schools don't require them. Some schools do require a counselor letter, some schools don't. The processes are pretty similar. For a teacher, it says face-to-face, but again, just email is fine because of COVID. Asking the teacher to write you your letter. Then you go to complete the request form in Naviance again. About me, my surveys not started. It's pretty simple, but I'm happy to walk you through that process if you have any questions one-on-one. When you're done, email your teacher to notify them. Let your teacher know of the deadline or the timeline. And then just another reminder, you need to have it in Naviance before your teacher can send the letter. Same thing with counselor letter. If you just email me and ask me to write one, I would be happy to do that for you. It's in Naviance again. It's under About Me, Surveys Not Started. I think it says Colloquia, Letter of Recommendation. And then answer the questions. My particular one has a Google survey if you want a trusted adult or a parent to fill out some extra questions to make your letter even more detailed and thorough. And they're basically just questions that allow me to portray you as a student and how you would fit in the college that you're applying to. So it just helps me write a more detailed and thorough letter. It's not necessary, but it is recommended if you feel like it's necessary, if that makes sense. Okay. Okay, I just went over the steps in the college application process. And again, the document can be found in the Canvas HHS counseling course. Something to kind of keep in mind is that a lot of larger schools will actually only want self-reported grades, so they won't even want a transcript sent. So like University of Minnesota, Iowa, Kansas, Wisconsin, Eau Claire, only want self-reported grades. And I believe that's the same for the ACT scores as well. So make sure to be accurate, because they do take your word and they'll accept you based on what you say. But then once they accept you, they'll ask for the official transcript. And if there's any mistakes or things aren't right, then they could rescind or reject or take back your acceptance. So visiting colleges and meeting college reps, if you're still in that phase of your college search process. I know it's super hard right now with COVID, but Naviance does have a list of college reps that are meeting through Google Meet or Zoom. So definitely take advantage of that. You can sign up in Naviance and the meeting link will become live 15 minutes before the actual meeting. But if you go on to a lot of the websites, there's already virtual tours and virtual information sessions. And it's actually pretty nice because you can kind of like virtually visit places that you otherwise necessarily wouldn't have been able to before. So there are some benefits with this whole virtual college search process. Okay, so obviously money is a huge factor for most people. It's important to keep in mind that the initial cost with larger public schools tends to be a lot less than smaller private schools, but it's also important to keep in mind that those smaller private schools have a lot more money to give in scholarships. So I would say apply for both of them. Don't even really think about the money at this point. You might be surprised as to what you get in offers in financial aid, either merit-based or need-based. You definitely want to complete the FAFSA. I believe it opens October 1st. We'll have some virtual workshops to help you do that. There's also some videos that we'll be putting up to help you go through that process, but you will need your parents' tax returns basically to be able to do that. And then your schools will take that information and give you they'll give you a financial aid letter, which will basically say, this is the cost. This is what we're going to give you in scholarships, which you don't pay back. This is what we're going to give you in loans, which you do eventually pay back after you graduate. And then if there's anything left over, this is what your costs would be. So it's important to just kind of keep all those financial aid letters in the same place and compare them and think about long term what your cost is going to be. Scholarships are ones you don't pay back, and grants you don't pay back, loans you do pay back. Scholarships will be coming out as well. GoingMary.com is what I recommend to all of my students. Naviance does have scholarship lists in our system, but Going Mary is a lot more user friendly and a lot more updated. So I would say www.goingmary.com, create an account, and it'll guide you step by step through those different scholarships as well. Those are national scholarships, so it doesn't matter where you go in order to get those scholarships. Your school or university might have specific scholarships as well, and those are typically based on GPA or ACT score. So you can always look into particular college scholarships that are being awarded as well. I did mention a little bit about the FAFSA, but loans, like I said, you pay back. Grants and scholarships, you don't pay back. Something else that they offer is called work study. It's basically they give you a job where you earn money to help pay for school. I did work study and I didn't have to necessarily pay it towards my tuition. I paid like my apartment. I had an apartment and I paid that. So, and then again, I mentioned the FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid. Some schools that are typically a little bit more selective or private require something called the CSS profile, which is an additional document used by some colleges in order to determine state and institutional aid. So there might be another form that you have to fill out, but in most cases there is not. Okay, so scholarship process I mentioned briefly. It does take work. Deadlines vary and are available all year long. We will have a local scholarship application as well that will go live probably in October or November through Google form, which you'll get in your announcements. Use scholarship databases. I mentioned goingmary.com. That's the one I would recommend. And then again, check if your college offers merit or need awards. Merit is based on grades and GPA, and need is based on financial aid, which they'll get from your FAFSA. So where do you find scholarships? I think I also covered this again, but the local scholarship will come in your advisory announcements soon. Naviance, if you go into list of scholarships and you go to the colleges tab, it will have a list. But again, here's some other databases that we at Hopkins recommend. I personally recommend Going Mary though. Okay, this is a good slide, essays. So Ask this year does have essay help. So you can sign up and get essay help with an English teacher. Follow the instructions, be authentic, don't say what you think they want to hear, write about what matters to you, tell stories that demonstrate characteristics of you that are a good fit for the institution you are applying to. And I would say at least have like 1 or 2 people proofread it, just because this is going to be one of the more personalized reflections on you. Kind of give your the admissions another look into you as a student that's not just numbers. So it is a super important part of your application, especially this year since ACT scores are becoming optional if you don't submit an ACT score. There are virtual college fairs, nacacfair.org, and I'll send you guys this in an email with all of these links. But September 28th through October 4th, register with this link here. It's an opportunity to attend some virtual information college sessions sponsored by MACAC. There are a variety of sessions to choose from. I'll stay after if you guys have any questions. If I haven't even looked at the chat yet, so you might have asked questions in the chat or maybe not, but I'm here to stay after if you have any questions, or if you want to just do an individual Google Meet, you can email me or just let me know what time works for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I still have 2 people here. That's good. I don't know if someone wrote something. Oh, Miles said thank you. Okay. Do you have any questions?
You can look for colleges on Naviance, right?
To look for colleges on Naviance?
Yeah.
Yeah, let me stop presenting here. Hold on. Okay, so now I'm gonna, oh, sorry, I meant to say stop recording. Hold on. Stop recording.